Hey, it's Sam from Sugar Spun Run, and today I'm sharing a super easy recipe for chocolate granola. Well, here's a quick and easy one for you. This is a recipe I've been making at home a lot recently. It is similar to my classic granola I've shared previously, but of course it is more chocolatey and a little more indulgent. Let's jump right in by preheating our oven to 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Next, you're going to need a large mixing bowl, and in this we're just going to start throwing a bunch of things together, really, starting with 3½ cups or 315 grams of old-fashioned oats. We're also going to be adding some nuts. I like a coarsely chopped nut, so these have just been coarsely chopped. You can use your favorite variety. I really like almonds, and I'm also using walnuts. So I just have a blend. You'll need about 1 cup or 130 grams of your favorite nuts. Next is the cocoa powder. Today I'm using a natural cocoa powder, and I'm using 1/3 cup of this, which I think is like 33 grams. And I like to add a little bit of coconut as well. I know not everybody does. It's a small enough amount that you could omit this if you prefer, but 1/3 cup or 21 grams of shredded or flake coconut works really nicely here. You could even increase this a little bit if you prefer. My family's not big on coconut, so I like enough that I can tell it's there, but it's not overwhelming the granola. And whether you want to use sweetened or unsweetened coconut, either will work nicely here. So in the principal recipe, I do mention some optional add-ins that I'll sometimes include here. Those are either 2 tablespoons of cacao nibs, 2 tablespoons of flaxseed, or 2 tablespoons of chia seeds. You can add 1 or 2 of those, or you can add all of them, or you can leave them out completely. This recipe is super adaptable. So I'm not going to be adding any of them right now, but I am going to go ahead and toss everything together. Okay, that's nicely combined. We're just gonna slide it out of the way. Grab a separate mixing bowl, or in my instance, I'm just going to be using this measuring cup because it's big enough to fit everything I need. And the first thing you need is 1/3 cup of melted coconut oil. You can use refined or unrefined. I think it's the unrefined that tastes a little bit more coconutty. So use whichever you prefer, or if you don't want to use coconut oil, you could use a neutral cooking oil instead. I would recommend avocado oil. But coconut oil is my preference, and I think it yields a better result and a granola that's just a little bit more crisp. So this is 71 grams or 78 milliliters of melted coconut oil. We'll also be adding 1/3 cup of honey. You could use maple syrup if you prefer instead. We'll add this right in with the coconut oil. Again, that's 78 milliliters. We're also going to be adding 1/3 cup of sugar. I've tested this recipe with a lot of different kinds of sugar, and my favorites are either regular granulated sugar or coconut sugar. Both work really well. This is like 66 grams of sugar. We'll also add 1½ teaspoons of vanilla extract for some nice depth of flavor, and 1/2 teaspoon of table salt. We'll also be adding some flaky sea salt later on. For now, we're just going to whisk everything together here until these ingredients are nicely combined. And you just want everything combined. The sugar's not going to be dissolving at this point. The honey is going to want to separate a little bit. That's fine, just get everything nicely incorporated. It's much better to get all these wet ingredients together here before we add them to the dry ingredients. That way we get as even of a distribution as possible. So we'll go ahead and pour these wet ingredients over the dry ingredients. We're going to toss everything together until all of that oat mixture is moistened by the wet ingredients we just added. And you may be wondering about these chocolate chips. These are for when the granola comes out of the oven, so don't worry about them just yet. In my previous granola recipe, I have included an egg white, which I've beaten until frothy because it was really helpful in getting a nice clustery granola. This recipe is a little bit different, and I found that the egg white was not necessary, so we just don't use it here in case you're wondering about that. But it is important that you get all of these ingredients moistened. That oil and honey, everything needs to be nicely combined. It shouldn't look dry. Make sure you're scraping the sides and bottom of your bowl. See, there's like a pocket of dryness there. That would yield a granola that is just not going to clump at all and probably isn't going to taste that good. All right, once everything is nicely combined, everything is moistened, we're going to grab ourselves a rimmed baking sheet. I've lined mine with parchment paper. It's my preference. All right, and we're going to just spread this in an even layer onto our baking sheet. All right, and we'll take this over to the center rack of our 300 degree Fahrenheit preheated oven, where it's going to need to bake for about 40 minutes. Keep an eye on it. What you're looking for is the granola should look nice and dry before it comes out of the oven. Right now, as soon as this comes out of the oven, you're going to want to add your extra chocolate. So I have about 2/3 cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips here, and I have a mix of the classic sized and the miniature. And I'm just going to sprinkle these evenly over the granola. And I want to do this while the granola is warm, otherwise it's not going to adhere. We're also going to sprinkle this with some flaky sea salt, which don't skip that because it adds so much flavor Nice little sprinkling there. And then just a word about the chocolate chips. So these are going to melt pretty quickly. They won't lose their shape, but they're going to get really melty. The granola we're not going to touch again until it's cooled completely, and then we're going to break it up into nice clumps and clusters. The chocolate can tend to sort of stick to your hands a little bit because it just stays melty longer than the granola stays warm. This is fine. You can wait until the chocolate's re-solidified, but something I sometimes like to do is while the chocolate is looking nice and melty, I'll use a spatula to just kind of smear it on top, which gives us a more even layer that coats the chocolate a little bit better, and it just stays adhered to the granola a little better. I said coats the chocolate, but I meant coats the granola. It doesn't really look as nice, but it tastes better, so you choose. All right, now do not touch this again until the granola has cooled completely. Otherwise, if you try to break it up too soon, you're going to have a really crumbly granola, and I like mine to be a little bit more clumpy and clustery. So I'm gonna let this sit for about an hour. All right, so this has been sitting for about an hour. The granola is completely cooled, but the chocolate is still pretty melty, which I warned you about. But we're going to go ahead and break this up so you can see how it looks. I'll try not to get it all over my floor. You can see it breaks into nice clumps, and you can break this as, you know, large or as small as you'd like. And you can use your hands, or you can use a spatula or a wooden spoon to break things up. And there you have it. That's how you make a nice, clustery, clumpy, delicious chocolate granola. If you try this one, leave me a comment, let me know what you think. I really do always love hearing from you. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. This is great in yogurt, but it's also great plain. That is delicious.